Most people think they see the internet, but beneath the surface is a world filled with crime, drugs, and illicit operations that one can't even imagine. Kolby Kopp is one of those people who found himself stumbling into the dark side of the web. From his early 20s, Kolby was a normal kid from Connecticut. He went on to be introduced to the illicit drug trade that's happening on the side of the internet that most people don't see. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Kolby went on to become a profound seller on the platform, cashing in on an undisclosed amount of money that you can't even imagine. On this week's episode, he walks us through his introduction to the dark web, all the way up to being sentenced by the U.S. federal government. Learn all about his explosive ascent to the top of this mysterious world on this week's episode of No Offense.
Three, two, one. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to No Offense. Thank you for tuning in. Please comment, like, and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. Our guest today is a former dark web drug dealer who has now waiting sentencing, I believe, currently, or is being sentenced. But Kolby Kopp, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.
Are you waiting currently for sentencing, or what's the situation going on right now?
I've already been sentenced.
You've already been sentenced. Okay.
And what was the sentence? What was the finalized deal?
5 years board of prison time, 5 years federal supervision, and then a $50,000 fine.
Jeez. And when does that take place?
So they extended my bond completely to self-surrender. So June 20th, I have to go out to Scranton, Pennsylvania, and turn myself into the federal prison I'm going to.
Oh, wow.
Wow. What's the anxiety like leading up to that?
Say that again, please.
So what's the anxiety like? What are like the emotions you're feeling? How does that feel knowing that it's just kind of coming?
It's the opposite of anxiety. It's you're calm. I mean,
Really?
of course, you're a little scared going to. I mean, I'm going to a camp, so it's not that scary, to be honest. But at least I know what I have to do to reclaim, my life. I know what I have to do to get back on track, because not knowing what my sentence was, looking at, possibly getting up to 14, 15 years, possibly getting up to I think a $15 million restitution they were trying to get me to pay.
Oh.
That stuff would have been terrible.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So take us all the way back, now that you're kind of facing the situation now. How did this happen?
I don't even know myself, to be honest. So, when I was like 18, 19, fresh out of high school, I had my group of friends, right? Much like how you guys are together, you have instead of, selling drugs, you guys have a podcast.
Yeah.
But we would all hang out, we would do normal college kid stuff. Like we were into, light computer science. I'm not saying we're an expert, but we were into that. We were into, video games, just normal kid stuff, right? So Connecticut does not have good quality weed, or really any good quality drugs for that matter, right? One of my friends has like the most beautiful ounce of like indoor weed I've ever seen. And I'm like, okay, bro, you don't have the social skills to go to like a city and get this. So where, how did you get it? And he said, okay, come over here. I sat down next to him. He pulls out a laptop, and I'm like, why are you pulling out a laptop? He's just like, stop talking. You're annoying me. Shut up. Okay. He pulls out a flash drive, plugs it into his computer. He goes on to Tor, which is the software you use to access the dark web. It's called the Onion router. And then he goes onto a darknet market that's like Amazon, for drugs, and it uses cryptocurrency. The darknet market he went on was Dream Market. And then he looked at me and said, hand me $200, I'll give you an ounce of weed too. I'm like, okay. So I hand him $200, and I'm like, well, how are we gonna, what is someone gonna come up to us and give it to us? He's like, kind of. I'm like, I don't want a random person on the internet coming up to us. He's like, well, it's not going to be a random person on the internet. It's going to be, the person that drops off your letters every Sunday. I'm like, the mailman? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, listen, I'll get it shipped to my house at first because I know you're a pussy and you don't understand this. So just give me the money, and in 5 days, it'll be here. Trust me. So I give him the money. Sure enough, 5 days later, where I get out of work, we're hanging out. He takes a flat rate mail envelope and slaps it in my lap. I open it up, and there is a vacuum sealed ounce of weed right there. It came from California. And I'm like, this is insane. This is crazy, right? So we keep going on, getting our own stuff off there. Eventually we get shrooms and acid and all that type of stuff that kids like to do to party. One day I get the bright idea, well, if these drugs are this good and this cheap, then why aren't we the ones selling them to everybody around us? So we do that with weed, right? So that goes on for a few months. And we get to the point where we approach some of the big time dealers in our town and we're like, listen, we can have like pounds just sent directly to your doorstep and no one has to even touch it. No one has to go pick it up from other states or anything like that. It just gets shipped right to you. And they're like, well, what happens if it gets caught in the mail? I'm like, the only thing that happens is you get sent a letter. I mean, if you choose to plead guilty to the crime in that letter, then you'll get arrested. But if you don't, then, you're fine, right? So eventually one of the people I'm working with is like, hey, I'd like to introduce you to my dad. He's a big time dealer himself. Where I'm like, well, how much weed would he want? Like, I could just order it right away and just, he's like, no, he doesn't sell weed. I'm like, well, what does he sell? So he sells cocaine. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that. He's like, come on, just come meet him. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's going to force you into it if you don't want to. It's not like you're just meeting him. I'm like, okay. So I go to meet the guy and he's like, you could get drugs offline and get it shipped to people's doors. I said, yeah. He's like, if that's true, I could probably make you rich. I'm thinking, I would like to be rich. Who wouldn't want to be rich, right?
Hell yeah.
So he opens up his wallet that's just stuffed with $100 bills, takes out one of them, slaps it in my hand, and says, get me a gram of coke in a reasonable amount of time for a sample. And he's like, well, what would a reasonable amount of time? I said, I guarantee you 7 days from right now, you will have your sample, right? Turns out that it was only like 3 days later that we got the sample. Oh, wow. Yeah. So
they
we
pack
go,
and ship
we bring
the
it
coke
to
ones
him.
faster for some reason.
Huh?
I said they pack and ship the coke deals a little bit faster for some reason.
It just happened to be a person closer than California to Connecticut. Okay. That's why.
Gotcha.
So we get the sample and it was gas. It was really, really, really high quality stuff, right? So eventually, after a week goes by after we get the sample, and he's like, I want to come talk to you again, but just you, not your friends, just you. He's like, I want to go into business with you. I had a little gig going on. I was working with some local people, but they all got arrested, so I don't have a steady supply anymore, and I'm trying to get that. And that actually is an opportunity for me, because I could just take up all these people that were going to this other guy and just make them my own. So then he gives me like probably $4,000. He's like, go get 4 ounces. We get 4 ounces. Then we get 8 ounces. Then we get 12 ounces. And then we get a pound.
So this just kept going up pretty quickly.
We got to the point where we were grabbing like 1 kilo to 1.5 kilos each week.
Oh my God.
And also, mind you, this is really high quality cocaine too. So we're cutting it in half, meaning we're doubling the weight of whatever we're getting and still killing it around here because the cocaine is such shit quality.
What were you cutting it with?
Vitamin B12, nothing crazy, just the normal, like we're not trying to poison our customers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
And how much would it cost to get one of those? And was it, were you at all like anxious about like that weight coming into your mail? Like I feel like that would start to like raise some more flags or. Well,
it wasn't going to our mail, so I wasn't anxious about that. And then like 1 kilo at that time costed like 31,000, and then shipping.
Whoa.
So.
And how much would you make off 1 kilo at that time? You bought it for 31. What would you typically make on that?
You could turn around and make like about $100,000 from that depending on how you sell it.
Wow.
Damn.
And you were always getting it from the same source every time for this?
Yeah. This was only like a 3-month period, all in all.
But the way that it works with like that network, it's is it true that like you didn't really know where you were getting it, and he didn't really know where he was sending it, or did you know who was sending it on the other end of it?
We had no idea who was sending it. We knew where it was going because we were, you know, we were setting that up. Like sometimes, like we would just have people prepay us and just send them stuff to their house. The stuff that we would get, you know, we would have it sent to somebody, pay them to have it sent there, and then we would cut that up and then sell that. You know, like he would sell a ton himself. I started selling some myself. You know, like it was a, you know, touch and go with that.
I gotcha.
You know,
go ahead,
so
you can continue where you left off at. Go ahead.
So yeah, one day that he's like, you got to come talk to me real quick. So I'm like, okay. I go to his house and he's like, listen, it's getting a little hot. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, some of the people we've been sending stuff to, right? They've been getting arrested. And like a couple of them, I know they've been arrested, but they're out. I'm like, well, what's the relevance of that? He's like, oh, you're new. You don't understand how this works, do you? I'm like, not at all. He said, they're trying to set us up to put us in jail. The cops don't have enough on us. Like they have no evidence on us whatsoever. Right. And we were never telling these people we were getting it offline. We just said we knew a guy, you know? So like the police could have called us into the police station and like looked at our phones to find the guy, but there's no guy. You know, so there's no way to charge us with something, right? Possession is 9/10 of the law. So we had to stop doing that business because that was getting hot, right? So sometime, you know, like a month or so goes by. I'm just working a normal job. He's doing whatever he's doing, right? And he calls me. He's like, I got an idea, but we got to talk about it in person. I said, okay. I go and see him, and he's like, listen, how does this site work? Is it like a centralized like business that has all the drugs themselves and they're sending it out? I'm like, no. Think of it more like Amazon. It's a platform that allows other people. It gives them a platform to, you know, facilitate their business as opposed to a central, like a Walmart, you know, going to Walmart and it's Walmart sending you stuff. It's different vendors that sign up. So he's like, okay, well, this is my next question. Is it like an exclusive list of vendors, or can like really anybody sign up? And I'm like, well, in theory, anybody can sign up. $750, you could sign up. But you got to actually, if you want to make money, you have to have a competitive advantage, right? Because selling drugs in person, right? If I have good cocaine in a small town in Connecticut, everybody's going to come to me, right? But if I have good cocaine on the dark web, but I'm a shitty business person, there's 6 other dudes that have better prices and better cocaine. So you got to have a competitive advantage. It's more like a business. It's an e-commerce business, right? And also, too, I'm like, we don't even know what we're going to sell. So he's like, well, I have an idea. I knew some Mexicans that were pressing these pills, you know, cutting them with fentanyl and then selling them. And they were making a killing. Like one of those pills could go for $30 in the street, and it costs like 5 cents to like 2 to 5 cents to make each one.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
That's
Yeah.
So were you like, yeah, let's figure
I
something
thought
out?
about it. Like literally at that point, it was like, okay, let me logistically figure out how to actually do this, right? Yeah. So through various technical means, I was able to order the parts that we needed, some from China, some from American suppliers. And then we assembled the press. I was able to find pharmaceutical grade compression binder, meaning like, when you get it, like, let's say like a blood pressure pill, like that white pill, that white chalky stuff, that's called the compression binder. And that makes it, you know, it adds a time release element to the drug. You know, you have a dye and all that stuff. And also you make the drug hard so it won't just crumble. You also make it slightly heat and moisture resistant, right? Because we don't want our pills turned into chalk or whatever. And also, I don't want to be killing 1,000 people. I want this to be time released, right? So we also, you know, we got that, and then we got the punch and dye to make the pills. And we purposely made the pills larger and a slightly different color than actual real pills. Because, again, I don't want to be killing a bunch of people. The point is to make money, not to kill a bunch of people and go to prison for murder.
How did you figure out how to do this? Like all this like stuff you're telling us, like did you learn it from somebody that did your partner know this, or did you guys just kind of like research
to
this?
make it?
Yeah.
He had the idea, like again, like he never saw these people make them, but like he knew that's what they were doing. We just kind of figured it out as we would go, you know?
Yeah.
It's a way to do it. Did there was like YouTube videos on this? Like, how did you just figure out like all the parts? Like, how did you know what you needed to get it done?
I mean, there are ways to. I don't want to say exactly how I did it because I don't want to give people bad ideas, right? But if you are inclined, you could figure out how to do something like that. Don't do it.
Yeah.
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 Don't do it. It's not worth it. But yeah.
What were the pills that you were selling? They were just fentanyl pills? So you said they were cutting with fentanyl, but what was the pill itself that you were selling, the drug?
You guys just lagged out. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, go ahead, Ray.
What was the pill that you were selling that you guys were making? What was it actually intended to do? You said you were cutting it with fentanyl, but what was it?
Well, like they're like they were like M over 30 M boxes. Colloquially they're known as blues, right? Anybody in the drug game knows that blues or pressies are pressed synthetic pills. Everybody knows that. That's common knowledge, you know?
Gotcha.
And also, too, I advertise. Like, when we eventually turned on a store and started advertising, I explicitly mentioned these are not real. There is fentanyl in these. And if you want to take them, you start with, like, a half a pill, right? That's literally in my affidavit. You could go check that out.
Okay, I see.
So as you're getting this set up and going, you know, like you said, you have to have a competitive advantage. So like, what was your competitive advantage to actually get your store launched?
So I was going on, so there's an ecosystem in the dark web, right? So you have the markets and then you have like the forums. Think of the forums like Reddit. It's literally like a clone of Reddit's API. It's called Dread, right?
Yeah.
So Dread is where you go to figure out like tutorials on how to do things. It's where you find out the who's who of like the day, if you will. Like there's this, like a new vendor could go on there and give away a bunch of shit, right? In their respective forum. So I went to the opioid forum and I would be like, hey, I want to give away some free shit, but I also want to have the verified reviewers. I'm not going to give away a ton of fentanyl pills to just run like normal people who aren't going to, you're just going to keep it, right? I want to definitely get a review in exchange, right? So I did that, and I was going through every single post of my competitors, and I would be noticing there would be like constant bad batches, or they had really slow shipping times, or they would just straight up steal people's money sometimes.
Damn.
So I'm like, oh, okay, I just have to ship stuff out fast, have a consistently quality product, and don't steal people's money. Just give them what they pay for, right? In principle, that's simple to do, but you know, a lot of people aren't able to do that, right? And also, being a smaller vendor at first, I'm able to communicate with each individual customer. At first, it got to a point where I couldn't, but that's what allowed me to get off the ground, right? You know?
Yeah. So how many pills did you end up giving away to begin with?
1,500 to about 2,000, I think.
Oh wow.
Damn. And
That's a lot more
how
than I
long
thought.
of a time span?
It was like the reason we were able to give out so many is because there was like 60 people that were verified viewers. We just sent it to them for free, right?
Okay.
But I already turned on a store on Empire Market. And I put on a free, I put on a promotional listing. It's like, get, you know, a pill for free as long as you pay for shipping. Because I'm not going to pay, that'd be like $20,000 for all that shipping. We're not going to do that, right? Sure. So a couple thousand other people individually ordered those pills. And then after that, we created the actual listing to just transact normally, right? And we were getting some organic sales, you know, like anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a day. But then I learned about this thing called a sticky from some of the other vendors I was talking to on Dread, you know. And, you know, not in my category, they wouldn't help me, but these are just random like weed vendors or cocaine vendors. They were helping out a newbie, right? And I'm like, well, what is this sticky thing? Like, what do you mean a sticky? And they're like, think of it like a paid ad listing, right? So when people type in keywords for your product, Empire will take you from the Goonies on like page 7 and put you on page 1 at the tippity top with like a gold outline around your listing that says sticky. And I'm like, really? so everybody would see it.
It is actually kind of crazy. It's legit. You're right. It's like an e-commerce. It's like people
Amazon.
are running like a legitimate big business. It's like, it's kind of crazy when you think about, because you think about somebody from like the untrained eye, like, oh, you're just selling drugs on the internet. But it's like you actually have to have some actual business tactics to go into, because there's other people competing with you. There's probably thousands of people on there, right?
I think, yeah, there's thousands of vendors, but about 1% of them, there's actual data on this too. About 1% of vendors make $100,000 or more. So only 1% of people are making what some people would call serious money.
And what year was this in when this was going on right now?
We started in like early 2020.
Okay. So yeah, okay. So it's early 2020. Okay, gotcha.
So when you first started, right, and you had, like, when you ran your first ad, did it hit well? Or was it a learning process? Like, how'd this go?
Okay, so the day before we ran the ad, there was like, I think like 1,100 or something in sales. So, I processed that, sent that over. This was at like 1 a.m, right? So I hit the sticky because it's on a 24-hour period, right? So I went to bed. I woke up probably at like 11 or 12 because I'm a degenerate. And then I went on my computer, opened it up, and saw like $25,000 in sales.
Holy
Whoa.
fuck!
Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
Was that your reaction too? Holy fuck!
My reaction, I immediately called my partner. I'm like, we have whatever you're doing, drop it because we have some work to do. Yeah.
Yeah, how many pills is that? Like, were you just working straight for the next week? I'm just.
I
pressing
wasn't.
these?
Our workers were. I wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
My
So
job
you
was the
had a
computer
team there
thing.
too.
What did you say?
You had a team working for you, pressing these
Yes.
things, and you had people surrounding you. How many people did you have working for you?
About 10. About 10.
Wow.
Damn.
Damn. Where did you find these people? How did you recruit people to work on your? On
You
your
know,
dark web
like
business?
my charm and charisma recruited them.
That's crazy.
So after that happened, did the store take off from there then?
The
And
next
was
day
that-
after this was 30,000. The next day after this was 32, and then another 25, and then 28. It did not stop. It blew up.
Was that all from the? And this is even after the sticky post.
Oh, I would
went
re-up
off.
the sticky. The moment it would turn off after 24 hours. It's $700 to turn that on, but it's worth every penny because you get $20,000 in business you would not have normally gotten.
And going about like mailing all this, are you guys just dropping this right at the post office, or?
No, if you go to the blue bins and drop these packages off, you will go to prison. That's a guarantee. Okay. You need to walk into the post office, show your face on camera, and get a receipt.
Really?
That's better than dropping it off anonymously?
Yeah.
Wow.
Why is that?
Yeah, I would not have guessed that. Why is that?
Whew. Sorry about that.
No, you're good, man.
You're good.
Don't
You're
worry.
good.
Is that the mailman?
Yeah, but what was I saying? It's more dangerous to drop these guys and drop them in like the little blue bins out that you see like sitting around the city.
Yeah. You don't think there's cameras outside of every single one of those, and you also don't think every single person who's ever considered selling this shit online immediately goes and does that,
True.
right? And also, too, you got to realize, like, USPS is a government institution. There's something behind the curtain. There's an elaborate mechanism behind the curtain. There's these things called USPS postal inspectors that they're like FBI agents. Like they could arrest you and everything. And if they think you're doing suspicious activities through the mail, they'll open up an investigation on you, right? So you need to actually go into the post office, show your face, pay with cash or whatever, and like just act normally.
And did all 10 of your employees at this time, including yourself, were you guys going in multiple times a day to multiple different post offices, or just one big drop?
I never went into a post office.
Okay.
My business partner, he went in a couple times, but we would rotate post offices. We would randomize it throughout the week. So we would let the week accumulate, and we would pick 3 or 4 random days out of the week to then go drop. Like we would drive to like New York or Mass sometimes and make drops, and it was randomized as much as possible.
That makes sense. It's a smart way to go about it. So as you're starting to make, 20K days, 30K days, and you keep going, how long did that last? Was it consistently 30K a day practically for the rest of time until?
No, but sometimes it was more than that. Sometimes there was like $50,000 days. But here's the catch though. These aren't this. You guys know what an escrow service is?
Not really.
Yeah, they hold the money until like the product is delivered or something.
That's
like that.
exactly how these websites operate, right? The website holds in this case, the crypto until the buyer gets the goods and then releases the funds. So I see $30,000 in sales, but I'm not getting $30,000 every single day. I'm probably getting like 10 to 15 released every day, right? So that would backlog all of my money and spread everything out, right? But I'm still able to pump these out because my profit margins were absurd, like 1,000-something% on each price point.
And this was all just from the one synthetic one that you were telling us that you guys were pressing. That's just that one.
Yes.
Oh, jeez. Did you guys ever get into selling anything else besides those?
We were planning on doing it, but that plan fell through.
Gotcha.
How come?
Okay, so we were having a lot of $20,000, $30,000 days, right? But then we had to keep going into this thing called vacation mode because the money wasn't coming through. You still need money to make money, right? Like if you have $120,000 a week in orders, or even like $200,000 a week in orders, you need like $20,000, $30,000 to fulfill all of that, right? And sometimes you would get so much in orders, we just had to shut the store down and fill everything out. So I had to tell my business partner, like, listen, like we need to find a new supplier or we need to switch industries because we're getting so much money. Like let's be the person on there selling blow, right? So he said, okay, let's go on a road trip. I'm going to introduce you to somebody and they're going to partner with us in this business. And, we're going to do just that. So I go on a road trip. This dude this is a serious guy. We meet him. And the day I meet him, remember how you guys said that, in an escrow service, the website holds the money, right? That day, the website stole all of our backlog money and everybody else's. And then it shut the site down. So they stole like $30 million worth of money and just left.
Which marketplace was that?
Empire.
Holy fuck.
Oh my God. Jesus. How much did you have in there?
A good amount.
Oh my God.
I can't say the exact amount.
Sure.
Over $1 million.
Oh my
What
God,
the fuck?
dude.
Holy shit.
And then you guys are finding this out that day as you're meeting this guy?
The day I'm meeting the person, the day we're supposed to set up a cocaine store for him, to partner with us, right?
And this is a guy you probably can't fuck around with to say, oh my God, this happened, right? Like
I'm not going to be deceptive. I told him exactly what happened. So he's like, okay, well, I'm not going to partner with you because I don't like how volatile this is. I don't doubt you guys were making money, but I'm not going to partner with you. However, you could use my network to get your active ingredient at a much lower price. And we did that, right? So a couple weeks go by after meeting that guy, and we go on this marketplace called Icarus. 3 weeks goes by, probably $300,000 in orders. Icarus exit scams.
Fuck. Were you able to extract any cash from that before, or were you back?
Probably about 100,000.
Oh God. So you're just getting hit back to back.
Yeah.
My Lord.
So at this point, I am utterly sick of using these marketplaces. So I want to tap into the pre-existing ecosystem on the dark web to try to create my own service, my own storefront. That's mine, that I control. And I was able to do that. Or so I thought. So I have my own service going. and this people directly pay me. You know, I've already built up credibility. You're going to pay me up front, right? And that's going on. You know, that's doing well. I met someone on a forum, and you know, he helped me set all this up, right? So eventually, I realized we still need to go on a market to then take all of the traction and traffic from a market and then point it towards my store. So that next market was White House Market, right? So they give me a free account. I go on there, and then they realize that I'm taking, you know, hundreds, if not probably 1,000 customers from their site and taking their business and putting it in my store. So they ban my account.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
And then what happened when that happened? So how long did you have your own marketplace going for?
At this point, like, I'd say like maybe like 3 months.
Oh, that's a pretty long time.
Yeah.
These are all approximations, you know, I don't
Sure.
exactly remember, but, and then around the 3 month mark, I realized like we need more traffic. So I tried to go on White House. I got banned. Luckily, there was a secondary market that was doing well called Dark Market. It had White House had like 2.5 million people, right? So that was the number one. Dark Market had like 500,000. That's still respectable, right? But that's not, you know, the number one market. And so I go on Dark Market. I start doing my thing. They don't ban me. I don't think they give a shit that I'm taking customers from their platform. But, you know, not being on the number one market and having my competitors be able to be on the number one market, that screwed me. That screwed me royally.
So at that point, having your own market, does that mean you have to have your own, like, it's just like building a website then, basically on the Onion then?
Think of it as having your own Shopify store
Gotcha.
on the Onion, as opposed to having your own Amazon. You have your own Shopify.
Okay, and who hosted, like, do you have to host this website, or how's that work? Because you have to
The
host this.
FBI hosted my website.
Oh shit.
Oh, fuck.
All right. All right. So talk about that a little
Explain,
bit. Oh my
please.
god.
So remember how I said I reached out to people online to help me facilitate this, right?
Sure.
That happens all the time, right? That's literally how these marketplaces get their admins and their customer service team, right? So I'm not a dumbass to think I could go source some people for my own project. That happens all the time. That's commonplace. But in my case, the FBI was like, "Oh, this is beautiful. We could be building his own service for him and just racking up the charges while he develops his own service."
So at that point, so the guy you were working with was he's like a kind of like a sting thing, that kind of thing, right?
They were all FBI intelligence analysts.
Oh, my God.
And is that pretty common that happens on the dark web?
Yeah. I mean, you know that the police are trying to get you. You know they're ordering from you. The trick is to make enough money and then leave.
Gotcha.
I didn't do the leaving part. I stayed for too long.
Yeah.
Did you have a plan of like, yo, here's how much I want to make, and then I want to get out? Or were you just like, I'm almost there. How was that thought process?
You make 1 million, you think 2 million's cool. You make 2 million, you think 3 million's cool. You make 3 million, you think 4 million's cool. It doesn't stop. It's addictive.
I could imagine.
Yeah, we've heard that from the people we've interviewed. It sounds like a pretty common occurrence. I could see why, though. I mean, you have all this money come in. It's like you'd be like, fuck, I need to stop. Like, if I just stay on for 3 more weeks, I'll have XXX number of dollars.
Exactly.
I could see how that could be extremely, extremely addictive. So at this point of where you're hosting it, how long before you figure this out, right? So, like, because, like, how long did you have this marketplace running before you realized that, hey, the FBI is hosting my website?
I found that out the day I was arraigned in court, but that's getting ahead of the story a little
Gotcha.
bit, right?
Okay, let's step it back then, and we can
So
continue.
we're on Dark Market, and we transact on Dark Market for a couple months as well, and we're running our own service. But then Dark Market gets busted, right? And that's not good. If you're a vendor on a website that gets busted, you need to immediately leave, because they have data on you, because they get the back end of a market. And believe me, these people are collecting a lot of information on you to try to get out of their own crimes. So
Oh, I see.
I then realize, okay, we need to shut down our own service that we have going, shut that down. And then my partner and I, we, amenably left. He's like, I'm going to go create a construction company. You're welcome to come work with me or do whatever you want. Thank you. We made a lot of money together. And, to this day, he still hasn't been apprehended. He's still out doing whatever he's doing. And I didn't cooperate against him because he didn't do anything wrong to me. Why am I going to do that to him? Right? So after some time, I just start, I get a normal job. I'm relaxing, just being, living my life. And a letter comes in the mail, a very special letter. It was a wiretap seizure notice from the federal government.
Oh, God.
So that's when I know for a fact they were looking at me. And there's an FBI agent's phone number, like on the documents.
Were you did you immediately call that number?
I never called the number.
Never called the number?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you probably have to think at that point, if it's like, if they have enough, like they're just going to come break down your fucking door and grab you. Why would you call them? I see why. I see what you're saying.
So what happened next after you saw this piece of mail?
I run my ass away to the other side of the country.
Oh, shit.
So I run my ass to the other side of the country, and I just become a hermit. And then eventually I figured out that some people with machine guns were coming to look for me. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I contact an attorney out where I was, and they're like, yeah, you have a warrant out from Washington, D.C.
Shit.
Right? So I retain a lawyer in that area, and I figure out a way to traverse the country in a clandestine way to be able to turn myself in at court. And, shout out to Greyhound Bus. They were amazing.
That's insane.
Yep. So I get myself there, and my lawyer meets me. He picks me up in his Maserati, drops me off at the courthouse, and we walk into the marshal's office, and I turn myself into the U.S. Marshals there.
Oh, my God. So what happens after that?
I get processed. They swab my mouth. They take my fingerprints. They take my picture. They write down my height, weight, ethnicity. They do like a psychological evaluation on you right there. You interview the the people that assess if you qualify for bond. You have an interview with them. And then I had my initial appearance in front of a magistrate. But the magistrate said, I don't have jurisdiction. You need to go in front of a circuit judge, like an actual federal judge. So I had to go to lockup for a couple of days in the local facility where they held federal inmates. And then about 3 days later, I go to my actual arraignment in front of a federal judge, not just a magistrate, a judge. Damn. And there's like 25 FBI agents there, the U.S. attorney. And they're just, these people are going up one after another testifying, we have this information on Mr. Kopp. This is why we think he shouldn't be allowed bond. And there's 10 of them testify. And then the U.S. attorney argues. Her argument was, I shouldn't be allowed bond because I smoke weed.
That's where she draws the line.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So obviously I was granted bond, and, I get out, I live my normal life. I eventually have my day in court. I realize I'm going to lose, so I need to take a plea deal, or I'm going to look at, I was facing 14 years, and they said that the way they assessed restitution, it's all the money we know that you made, or not even you made, just that your organization made, we'll charge it in restitution. So they're like, we could probably do a $15 million restitution if we wanted to. So I'm like, yeah, let's not do that. Let's take a plea deal and not lose in open court like an idiot.
Yeah,
and,
fair.
I got my sentencing, and now I'm just awaiting my time to actually go to prison and serve my time.
Fuck, dude.
How long has it been since you first got that wiretap notice until now? How long ago was that?
March of 2021.
Oh wow. Okay, so it's been a couple of years since you first
Yeah.
got that. Okay. How long did it take from the time that you turned yourself in until you were sentenced?
October, November, December. Like 6 months.
So it's kind of like that's like relatively pretty quick actually. I would think.
That's very quick. Very
Yeah.
quick concerning courts.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Stepping back, when you first got that notice in the mail, what was that initial feeling? Were you like, fuck? Like, what the fuck is going on? Like what was the emotions like for that? Because I can imagine if it was me, I would fucking...
Obviously, it was bad enough for him to bolt.
Yeah, no shit. I know that.
It's like,
but I'm curious because like not a lot of people go through that. I'm curious, like, what was that like? You're like, oh my god, I can't believe. Like, were you just thinking in your head like, what happened? Like, who was it? And like, what did they get? Type of thing.
I want to know how these motherfuckers knew about me.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know. I'm like, how did you get me? I thought I got you.
Yeah, literally.
Oh my.
I mean, that's the problem, right? With like, because like you're doing all this stuff on the dark web, and everyone's anonymous, like, right? So you're kind of just like,
not, you're really not as anonymous.
I mean,
as
as
you
in,
think you are.
explain that, because like, how did like, what do people do to like prevent themselves? Because you always hear about people like you doing stuff to prevent themselves from or to make themselves more anonymous. Like, what do they do to like, do that?
Okay, the ecosystem on the dark web. You need cryptocurrency to facilitate all these transactions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys know about cryptocurrency at all?
Yeah.
Okay, you know how every crypto is on a blockchain, right? Our blockchains blockchains are immutable, right?
That's where my knowledge goes down, but yeah.
Okay, meaning every single transaction is on think of it as like a web of every single transaction that occurs, right? So there's this giant company called CipherTrace that solely exists to trace down people like me using blockchains. So anytime you move cryptocurrency to buy drugs, if people want to find out about it, they could. It's not as difficult as people think.
Really?
So it's not
Yes.
it's not as anonymous as people think.
No.
Is that all cryptocurrencies, or are there some that would be more anonymous than others?
So Monero right now is the most anonymous, but that's only a matter of time before the government cracks their algorithm. Again, it's going to be like a game of whack-a-mole. Like these are called privacy coins, right? As more privacy coins pop up, the government has unlimited resources, and they'll just pay more computer scientists and data scientists to figure out how to crack the algorithms behind these coins, and then they're not secure whatsoever.
See, so it's just a race. Interesting.
So when it comes to like your profiles online, because I'm kind of curious about it. Like when you first brought it up, you were talking about verified reviewers and verified vendors and stuff like that. How do you even get a badge to become like a verified individual on these marketplaces?
How do you get a check mark on Twitter?
Well, now you pay for it.
Yeah, now you pay for it. But I mean, yeah, like sending in stuff, I guess literally verifying your info.
Well, okay, so if I have the same handle, right, I'm able to see how long that handle's been around for, right? If you've been around for 2 years, and like I can see how many comments you've made, I can see how many posts you've made, I can see every thread you've ever been on, and like the admins will award certain people, like it's like a literal badge. It's like verified reviewer, like you're good, right? Like these are the people you go to actually get honest reviews.
I see.
Like a Yelp local guide.
Yeah, I was also interested in the idea of like the sticky of the ad. That's so funny to me that there's a service out there that acts just like Google Ads, but for the dark web. Seems like a really honest service that someone created within this ecosystem.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Was that ad company, is that provided by the platform itself, or is it like a third party that kind of like integrates their little ad system into any marketplace?
Well, the federal government loves trying to integrate its own ad system.
Okay.
But these websites don't use JavaScript, so you can't integrate. Like, I don't even think there's an API that you could look at to integrate things. So all of these services are on like the actual proprietary website. Like they add that as a feature. So
I see. So it's just another way for the market itself to make some money.
yes.
Okay.
Besides also stealing all of our money too.
Right. There's that.
Which seems like it happens.
Did those
fairly
guys
not
ever
a
get
lot.
caught? Those guys that exited?
No, still out to this
No
day.
shit.
Whoa.
Oh,
You'd think that would be like the easier one to catch is like the guys at
Yeah.
the top of the whole thing.
If they don't do it the right way, yeah.
They were real clever, apparently.
You yourself, like, were you like when you're going on like the Tor browser? Are you like just using are you using different computers, different phones? Like, how did you make sure that you, in your own way, to make sure you were staying secure? You know what I mean? As secure as you could be,
or hypothetically, for that matter.
hypothetically.
You would use not your Wi-Fi. You would use air cards for your computer, and you would use Tails operating system.
Damn.
This is I'm sorry. I have all these questions because I'm so curious about it. 'Cause it's such a weird thing because you always hear Tor is so anonymous, but then you realize it's not. Because like now it's like maybe like 15 years ago when
Like with like the Silk Road thing. And
Yeah, Silk Road.
exactly. With
Yeah.
like all that stuff, it's like years ago this was probably more anonymous, and now like the FBI, government, they all know about it. So it's like,
Yeah, how different is it like now compared to the Silk Road era when that was like huge news?
Well, they're still popping vendors from the Silk Road era because, again, Tor is anonymous. The thing that's not anonymous is the cryptocurrency. That's what's getting everybody caught. I mean, besides being like, there have been people like me that have sold my exact same product, but they would be on Instagram in a rented Lamborghini with a bag of $100 bills and an assault rifle, like with some like stupid ass caption. That kid went to jail for 17 years, right? So these people get themselves caught too. I got myself caught because I'm a dumbass who didn't realize how cryptocurrency worked, right? I'm not really a tech person. I'm a businessman, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Damn. Yeah, that's like, I remember going on Silk Road. My cousin showed me this. He's like, you got to see this fucking website. It's insane. You could buy literally anything and everything on this thing. And I was like, this is a whole new generation of way to buy stuff. My question,
Dom's like, where do I invest?
how do I get started? No. So like, okay, how much of it, how much, and you probably don't know, but just like, I guess imagining being on the forums and stuff, you would probably get an idea. Is it a lot of guys like you running, I guess, quote unquote, smaller organizations relative to some of these larger cartels, or is there a heavy cartel influence on a lot of the dark web distribution? All right.
Come on, Dom.
Hypothetically.
What are you, the cops?
let me put it to you this way. There was a cocaine vendor that made like $10 million in his first 2 weeks of being on there. Who has $10 million worth of cocaine to sell?
Yeah, holy fuck.
yeah. So you have to begin that from somewhere. So, well, next question. Oh my God, was there like for your like site? Is there like a customer service for these marketplaces? Like if somebody's not satisfied, can they email you? Be like, hey, I'm not satisfied with this product.
Yeah, they message me, or they'll dispute.
Or they'll dispute the charge. You said, or the
They
thing?
dispute the transaction, and the escrow is still held until I have to resolve the dispute. Of course, there is so many people trying to steal from me every single day. Some of them could get away with it. Most of them wouldn't. Eventually, I would. So there's a mechanism to see how good a vendor is, but I, as a vendor, can see these buyer accounts. And there's levels to these accounts. So if you're a brand new account and you placed an order for, let's say, 1,000 pills that's fresh, I'm going to send you 1,000 fake pills, and then I'm going to provide the tracking in my own dispute and just take the money out faster because I already know you're trying to scam me, right?
Yeah. You have to kind of think on your toes at all times.
Of course.
Do you think there'll be like a growing demand for like this stuff on the dark web, or do you think until somebody figures out how to the crypto situation that people are just going to keep getting caught, or do you think it's going to keep growing the market?
The only people that are at risk of getting caught are the admins of the website, vendors like myself, right? And then people that are buying like huge amounts of drugs for resale. But outside of that, they don't want the little people. They don't care about them. And I think that this is going to grow. Instead of going to some shady alley to get coke, you could just have it sent to your doorstep. That's appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah, right. Especially the anonymity of it, especially with people who are maybe in positions that it would be more detrimental if people found out that they were using something like that. those are probably the people who are definitely going to want to send it to their house.
Yeah, I was always fucking I always thought like you need like you always hear like you go on there, you're gonna get caught, or there's people always trying to get you on there. So like, but you're right. Like, why would they be going after one guy who's buying one pill on a website versus suppliers and with the website?
There's people who are buying like 30,000 at a time.
Holy
you know?
fuck!
Yeah.
30,000 at a time.
If you can, I mean, if this is too much, we'll cut it. But what was the biggest order you ever got placed by an individual customer?
Like 25,000, I think.
My God.
Wow.
How much? Fuck, I was joking. 25,000. Holy fuck! Dollars or pills?
Oh, pills.
Fuck.
Wow.
Holy shit! And what was your average pill? How much were those pills going for again?
$9, $8, $9, $8.50, $8 and $7, and then anything below the $7 range was like we would negotiate that. But so like if you were getting anything under 100, it's $9 a pop. Our average order was only 50 pills, right? If you were getting 100 to like let's say 250, it was $8.50. 250 to 500, $8, and then 500 to 1,000 is $7, and then anything over 1,000, we would just directly negotiate that out.
That makes sense. Did you have a lot of repeat buyers as well,
Yes.
or was it a lot of repeat buyers? So you almost started to build a relationship with some of these guys in larger quantities.
It would be funny, like there would be some people I would notice they would start out with 50 pills, and then in a period of a month they're getting 1,000.
Oh, wow.
Jesus Christ. And this it might be I'm just curious, and I know it's a stereotypical question, but I'm just curious. Did you ever personally feel like some sort of like guilt for like doing this or selling this?
I am wrestling with that every day. I don't know, because I feel I am libertarian.
Yeah.
So I feel that grown adults make decisions and they have agency, right? Freedom comes at a cost. So in our country, legally, all four of us could go out to a bar and drink, right? Mm-hmm. But let's say three of us decide to take Ubers, but one of us, let's say I decide to get in a car when I'm drunk and I kill somebody, right? Is that the bar's fault? Is that the liquor store's fault? Is that the manufacturer of the alcohol's fault? Whose fault would that be?
In my opinion, I think it'd be on the driver, obviously.
Yeah, right.
Their responsibility to not get behind the car inebriated.
Okay. So if you're purchasing a pressed pill, is it not your responsibility to realize what you're doing? To realize what game you're playing, right?
Mm-hmm. I agree with you, because I'm libertarian with that too. I think if people should be able to, if they want to get it, they should be able to do it. They're all grown adults, whatever. But there's always gonna be those people that will say, well, this and that. But there's always gonna be a guy doing it. If it's you, somebody else. There's gonna be somebody supplying it. It would never ends.
I think the way to fix that, the only way I think that you actually would fix that, the war on drugs is objectively is a failure. Mm-hmm. If you legalize, tax, and regulate all of these drugs, and you have a clinic where these people go and get these drugs and can also request health services related to their addictions and also try to seek treatment, that would be the way to ameliorate this problem, as opposed to just putting people like me in jail who sell the drugs and then doing nothing for the people addicted to them, because there's no recourse for those people, right? There's no system in place that really help them. But there's a huge system in place to put criminals in prison.
That's true, right? Because
the users are just going to get the drugs elsewhere, so they're not really solving the problem there.
That's what I mean, exactly. Yeah. You could put 1 million people like me in jail. Someone's always going to come up and do it.
Yeah, and there's always like if you're not fixing the root problem, they're going to keep buying.
Yes, exactly.
Which makes sense. You should be able to.
And
they're
also,
doing to get them up. Go ahead. Sorry.
My apologies for cutting you
good.
off. The federal government is to blame specifically for the opioid crisis. Are you all familiar of what about the reason as to why there's an opioid crisis in our country?
No.
Oh, okay. Can I explain that real quick?
Please.
Do, yeah.
Okay, so back in the day, you could go into the doctors and say you have a toothache, and they're going to give you like 200 Percocet 30s they're just going to prescribe it to you, right? Back in the day, in most states, there was no database. So let's say you go to a different doctor's office and say, I have a toothache there. You get maybe even more Percocets. You get 300 this time. And you could do that anywhere. And specifically in the state of Florida, there is these places called pill mills where you would just go and knowingly like get prescribed tons and tons of pills for resale. These companies would specifically go to, let's say, doctors or medical, medicine wholesalers, and they would incentivize them with kickbacks. So also there was internal memos that these companies knew that these drugs were addictive, and they were using very aggressive marketing tendencies to go after people to get them addicted to their drugs. They were being drug dealers, just like me, right? And of course, these people are billionaire pharmaceutical, company owners, so they would go to the government and they would pay their respective bribes to the government, or as we like to call it in our country, campaign contributions or PAC contributions, right? Mm-hmm. So the government's going to turn a blind eye. Well, eventually when you keep overprescribing highly addictive opioids, in this case oxycodone or any of the codone family, any of these opioid pills, millions and millions of people are going to become addicted, right? And we as a country, we realized that this has become an epidemic, and we realized that these companies are taking advantage of people and they're trying to force them to get addicted. And the reason I say these companies were taking advantage of somebody and I wasn't was because these companies were misleading these people. They were saying these pills aren't addictive, it's just to help you with pain management. And they were lying to these people about the addictive properties of these drugs, right? So the federal government says we can't ignore this anymore. We need to do something. Their solution was just to ban the sale of these opioids and to make it incredibly difficult to actually be able to prescribe these opioids. So they sent tons of doctors to jail. They fined tons of, Purdue Pharma got fined. Various other pharmaceutical companies got fined. But now you have tens of millions of people who are addicted to opioids and they can't get their fix anymore. So what is a cheap, plentiful alternative in the street?
Heroin,
right? And so millions and millions of people are turning to street drugs because heroin, if you take heroin and you look at one of these opioids in the pill form, they're really not that different. It's virtually the same thing. And right around the time, this is when fentanyl was being cut into heroin, right? So now you had this full-blown opioid epidemic, and then now fentanyl is being introduced. And now you have the crisis that we have nowadays. It's literally because of our own government. They manufactured this.
Push the problem on them and then just took it away and said, hey, solve it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, this is not even a conspiracy theory anymore. We literally know that in the 1980s, the CIA flooded our cities with crack cocaine.
Yeah.
Right? That's known. If you think that they're not doing this now with the opioid epidemic, I would find, I would find those people naive if the government doesn't have a hand in this.
What is and I'm saying this for people who are watching, what would be the benefit for them to do that?
Yeah, talk about how they flooded the streets with crack cocaine in the 80s, I think you said.
And like, why did they do that and the benefits of why they did it?
Well, at the time, they needed. Again, I have a cursory understanding. I might misspeak. Yeah. So all the people behind their computers, please don't take everything cool. I say, But as to my understanding, the Congress didn't want to allow the CIA to arm Contras in South America. So the CIA is like, you know what? They went to their contacts in South America, got a whole shitload of cocaine and started selling it in our streets. And then they purchased the weapons, throughout the world and sent the weapons down to their contacts in South America to fight, in the Contra conflict or in various other conflicts there.
It's so fucking crazy how this all works.
It's like ridiculous. I mean, we were even talking to, oh my God.
JD?
No, Cartel.
Oh, Luis Chaparro.
Yes, Luis Chaparro. He was talking about like the higher level, the amount that the government is really involved to this day in every little aspect of the drug game. It's insane.
The reason these people are around is because they all have made deals. That's how it works at a high level. Every one of them has a deal with the government. Every single one of them.
It's almost like they're getting their competition out of the way when they're trying to take
That's
out,
exactly what that's exactly what they're doing. Yes.
Yeah, he was telling us how, like, you know, it always starts with these big corporations. You know, the big corporation need this person moved out of this certain area, so they bring the cartel in to do this, and it just the government might not have initial contact with them, but it's just like a chain of command that goes down, and all of a sudden they're working with the government somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck.
That's really insane.
It's crazy how the U.S. And it's like no one thinks about this. You know, it's like a common thing. They're like, oh, pharmaceutical companies are bad. But there's not like a lot of action done against it because there's just so much money in it. I think they just have every politician in their pocket.
Exactly. And in the case I described before, these people were literally acting like your average drug pusher on a street corner. Like, let's get these people addicted, you know, let's rope them in. Let's sell them more, you know, let's sell them as much product as possible. You know, let's give them some stuff for free so they develop a taste for it. But, you know, that wasn't illegal at the time. They only paid a fine as opposed to going to prison for in my case, 5 years, right?
Fine.
So you see like these, so like maybe you can attest because you would probably know more about this. Like, why do we see all these people? We know like fentanyl is like obviously extremely, what's it called? Harmful, dangerous, whatever. We see all these deaths right now happening. Is this because these guys are not doing these pills properly, or is they're just putting too much in? Obviously, like what is the reason for we see all these deaths now because of this?
So I think there's a couple of reasons, right? In my experience, there have been people who have gotten clean off of opioids, right? You develop a tolerance very, very fast with opioids and with fentanyl. So these people will get clean, but you know that drug addicts have a tendency to relapse, right? Mm-hmm. So they'll relapse and they'll go do the amount of the drug that they think that they, you know, normally could handle, and then it will kill them, right? Or there'll be times where like people will go get Xanax off the street and it's pressed with fentanyl, right? Or sometimes people, they don't understand high school math, or they're probably high when they're cutting up the drugs and they put in way too much. You know, there's a multitude of factors, and I'm sure there's even more factors than what I just addressed.
Why even add the fentanyl to like to cocaine, for example? That's been a big problem with cocaine. Why add the fentanyl to that whenever there's a seemingly a pretty good chance that it's going to have some negative effects also on your customers? You don't really want to.
I have no idea why you would ever add that to a stimulant. Like that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. I don't know why people do that. I wouldn't do that. I've never done that.
Yeah, is it
just
people
seems silly to me?
Not knowing what's going on, just trying to cut it with whatever they can.
But specifically, why would you take it like an incredibly powerful opioid and cut it into a stimulant? Because when I buy cocaine, guess what I want to do? Cocaine.
Yeah,
I don't want to do an opioid. Like, if you're thinking you're going to get more customers because it's better, no, it would. I assume it would diminish the experience. So I don't understand why people would be doing that.
Yeah, it's wild, and it's sad to see all these people die from that. It's been.
Well, yeah, because there's obviously a lot of people out there aren't. Like you just said, there's people are fucking probably high. Like they don't know the amounts. They're just they're eyeballing it. They're eyeballing it. I assume. Like who knows? It's hard to say, right? Because if you're not at the source, you can't tell, right? And it's coming from, I imagine, probably not coming from as many sources as people think. It's probably coming from a couple big sources, but you don't know what they're doing unless you're there in front of it. So
I would say it's American dealers, all American dealers that are cutting this product with fentanyl, because the cartel why would they want to do that? That doesn't make sense.
It brings a lot of heat on them.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too, and especially because like the cartel gives it in some relatively pure form, and then as it gets exchanges a bunch of hands in between the end user, you have a lot of different users cutting it their own times, or dealers cutting it and cutting it and cutting it until it gets down, and then by that time, who knows what's in it.
With do people originally just put it in there, like, because people are like, when they cut it with stuff, is it just because it makes it stronger? Obviously,
it's because they can sell more.
So sell more.
Yeah, because you could double what like that value is. Make it 50% Coke and 50% something else.
Shit.
Yeah. So remember how I said, like, when we were ordering the shit off the internet, I would cut it with vitamin B12.
Yeah.
Right. I just doubled, like I just made like $5,000 more just because I added, and vitamin B12 is not going to hurt anybody by putting it up their nose or whatever. It's a benign cut, right?
Yeah.
But so exactly, I just made so much more money by doing that.
Jesus
And didn't have to harm any of your customers.
What did you say?
I said, and not having to harm any of your customers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is insane too. I mean, like when you see, did you ever see, like going back to the older days, I guess, did you ever see the movie American Made?
No.
Okay. Fascinating movie, actually. It's actually about how the CIA worked with the cartel, with Pablo Escobar, to have this guy fly over, like created a fleet for this guy.
You're talking
to
about
bring
Roger
over the
Reeves and Barry
cocaine.
Seal?
Yeah. Roger Reeves and Barry Seal.
Yeah, I read
those
Roger
guys.
Reeves' memoir. Yeah,
Okay,
I know
yeah.
about this.
Yeah, trying to get that guy on. He's got a crazy story. That's crazy though, right? Like the influence that the politics in America had to get the coke in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now they look at it as an issue, and like now it's like, oh, it's almost it's I would say it's almost unsolvable right now. It would be a really large feat to eliminate. But like you said, if they made everything legal, that would take down the majority of. Would you think if they made everything legal, it would take down like the cartels? You think, money wise?
You know how much money they lost? Almost 50% of their revenue from the legalization of marijuana in just the states that legalized it.
Oh wow.
Damn.
Jesus.
Yeah. So if you did that for every substance, and then imagine if the United States was able to collect a tax on that.
It'd be insane. But they would never.
I mean, they might. There's countries that have done it. There's
How you said they would never. They've done that before in the past. Like opioid, like opium was legal. Cocaine was legal at a time, and it was just taxed. You know, like we used to put cocaine in Coca-Cola and drink it literally as a common beverage. You know, all this stuff this is around the 70s and 80s when the war on drugs started.
Yeah, it's super recent. So it's definitely reasonable to think that there's going to be a time in the somewhat near future, especially with like you see these states like experimenting with decriminalization of a lot of different substances. And obviously countries have tried this out and stuff. So I feel like there's a lot of data out there to support it. I can see them doing it relatively soon.
But the problem is the prison industrial complex makes so much money, and law enforcement makes so much money from the current system.
Yeah. There is a massive economy around the war on drugs for everyone fighting the war on drugs.
Yeah.
Trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
Trillions with a T.
It's insane. And you see too, like, I don't know if you saw this, but I think like 2 months ago or whatever, they was it the DEA? I think it was the DEA. They found like $200 million worth of cocaine
Off of Australia.
off of Australia or whatever.
Just
yeah,
in the
whoever
ocean.
it was, just in the ocean,
Yeah.
just chilling. It's like, but like you think about it, like that seems like so much, but it's probably just a drop in the bucket compared to what's
No.
going on in the global.
Yeah. And you know why all that cocaine was off the coast of Australia?
Huh.
1 gram of cocaine in Australia is worth $400.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, they have no coke there.
Yeah.
Holy
Like-
shit.
They have a real supply issue.
Got a real supply issue.
It's almost like what if
We should
what if
band
someone
together.
could ship it?
So what do you have going on now, man? Like after, like, what are your plans? Like obviously this is very, very mature or premature, I should say. Like, what do you think like is gonna be like your future plans? Like, what do you like? How am I gonna fucking say this? I don't know how to say this.
It's all right, buddy. You got it.
You got this, Andy.
Get into it, man.
Get into it. What do you think your plans are for the future? Maybe after your release, because 5 years it seems like a lot for me. But I
I'm
feel
not
like
spending 5 years in prison.
No, all right, because okay,
At 2 years at the most.
okay, so
At
that's
the most.
Just because like good behavior, or
Appeal.
Because of the RDAP program, the First Step Act, and the CARES Act.
How do all of those take? I mean, because I don't know. How do all those take precedent? Like, how does
So
it
the
work?
RDAP program is, I was abusing cocaine, so I got the drug program. I complete it, and it takes a year off my sentence and gives me a year of halfway house. Right away, a year is also taken off my sentence for because I wasn't in a gang. And then the First Step Act and the CARES Act, that's just those programs are to get you out of actual incarceration quicker, to reintegrate into society. So I could still be an inmate, but I could be living at my house while working a job or starting my businesses, which let me also segue into my plans. I have a digital marketing agency using AI tools to do fulfillment right now. I'm partnered with somebody. We're trying to do that. And also, I will be going on Amazon once I figure out exactly what to sell.
You'll take over the fucking Amazon.
Taking it legal.
You know, I thought that until I actually met somebody who's kind of taking me under their wing, and they were schooling me on stuff. And they're like, what's the most money you ever made in one day from doing what you did? And I'd say probably, you know, my craziest day was 90,000, right? And he's like, okay, your best day would be my worst day ever. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, we're doing $40 million a year in sales.
Wow.
So he's like, you have a lot to learn. I think you'd be good at this, because he saw my interview on Matt Cox's show. Shout out to Matt Cox. Thank you for hooking me up with these guys. And he reached out to me and wants to mentor me in the e-commerce space. And I'm accepting all mentorship that I could get, because I never want to go back to prison ever again.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. I mean, hey, like the silver lining is you got yourself to a place where you learned a lot of valuable skills that you could use elsewhere, right? I mean, being able to work in e-commerce system and stuff, like you can obviously translate that to Amazon and things like that. So that's kind of a silver lining, you know, when you get out, you have a game plan.
Yes. Well, I mean, I have to think of it that way, because, you know, instead of being, you know, depressed and thinking I screwed up my life, you can't really think that way. That's a great way to destroy yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to stay positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like this sentence wasn't, any sentence is bad, but I feel like you got a pretty good deal, I would say. Like it's not bad. Not bad.
Yeah.
Especially with what you were saying with the early release time. That's 2 years old. I imagine would probably fly by pretty quick. I imagine when you get into like the 10 to 15, it starts stretching a little bit, but that doesn't seem too bad.
I couldn't imagine.
No, I couldn't imagine that either.
No.
Yeah.
I would die.
Yeah.
So I mean, hopefully I'll only be 26 when I'm actually out of jail.
Yeah.
Wow.
How old are you right now?
24.
I didn't realize that. Oh, wow. Okay. Damn.
Jesus Christ. I did not know that.
You made a lot of shit happen real fast.
Yeah. People online, like on Matt's video, they're like, this fat motherfucker looks 40. And I'm like, oh.
They're like, how'd this old guy figure out the dark web?
It's fucking hilarious.
Oh my God.
So when you started this, like you were like 20 when you started doing this?
Yeah, 20 years old.
Fuck.
Damn.
So you were killing it, dude, when you were like 21, 22, just fucking...
I mean, I wouldn't say that.
That's insane, though. That's wild. And then, so, you know, just kind of one last thing before we wrap up. I'm wondering, you know, if you have one, like...
Piece of
lesson
advice
or
for
piece
those
of
trying
advice
to
for-
do
yeah.
something like this. No, I'm just kidding.
If you had one big lesson or one piece of advice for someone who like maybe actually teetering on the line of doing something like this that's like highly illegal and could potentially put you behind bars, like what would you tell them? What's been your experience and what would you tell them?
So what I would say, I have a couple of pieces of advice, right? I was a good student. I played sports. I used to iron my khakis to go to school, you know? If I could fall into this lifestyle, anybody can, right? And if you're thinking about, let's say, going and opening a store on the dark web, if you have the business chops to do that, just go open up a store on Amazon instead. Because if you can make money on the dark web, you could make money on any e-commerce platform. You don't have to, you know, do something highly illegal and have people with machine guns and suits kick your door in to try to find you. You don't have to do that. You know, there's other ways to make a lot more money. For every $1 on the dark web, there's tens of thousands of dollars on the clear web. And on, you know, places like Amazon, Walmart.com, Fair.com. And there's so many ways to make money using the internet. You don't need to do crime.
I love that.
Love
You heard
that.
it here first, everybody. That's honestly impactful, though, because people need to hear that shit.
Yeah, you see a lot of people
So
getting
much
looped
now.
up around that. And obviously, like you said, there's tons of other options out there, I believe. Make you a lot more money.
Exactly. You could make a lot more money on the clear web.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kolby, I appreciate your time, man. When we end this right now, I'll tell you how to upload it, and then we'll be good to go. But I appreciate you coming on, and this was actually learning experience and pretty goddamn crazy.
Yeah, it's super interesting, man. We appreciate it. We appreciate you.
Thank you
taking
guys.
the time
I
to share the
appreciate you
story.
guys having me on your show.
Of course, yeah. And
No
thank
problem.
you so much.
And when you're out, we'll have you on again.
I would love to. Thank you.
Let's do it.
Hopefully I can do it in person as well.
Yeah,
Yes,
that'd be awesome.
amazing.
That'd be really cool.
Where are you at, Ro? Well, what state are you in?
I have to be in Connecticut.
You have to be in Connecticut. Not too far. We're in Chicago. We'll fly out, get a little studio.
Yeah. Talk about your e-commerce platform at that time too.
Yeah, exactly.
Hell yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Well,
Amazing,
cool.
guys. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in.
See you guys next week.
See you next week.